I wasn't looking for anything that day, just another walk to grab coffee. But sometimes, life throws you something unexpected, like the wallet I found on the sidewalk. It was a worn, brown leather wallet, half open and abandoned, as if it had been dropped in a hurry. I picked it up, glanced inside, and saw the name Thomas Westbrook. The address was nearby, so I figured I'd return it. But when I arrived at the address, I stopped. It was a nursing home. Something in me hesitated, but I didn't want to leave the wallet at the front desk. Something told me to take it to the person whose name was on the ID. I walked down the hall to room 206 and knocked. "Come in," a soft voice called from inside. I opened the door and saw him, an elderly man sitting by the window, staring out at the rain. His hair was white, his hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were sharp. When he saw me holding the wallet, his face softened. "You found it," he said, his voice low but full of relief. I nodded. "Yes, I found it outside. I thought I'd return it." He took the wallet from me, turning it over in his hands as though it held something precious. His fingers traced the edges gently, then opened it. But instead of just looking at his ID, he paused and pulled something from the flap inside, a small folded letter. I didn't know why, but I couldn't look away. He held the letter for a moment, almost as if he were savoring it. "This," he said quietly, "is the last thing my daughter gave me." I froze. His voice had caught on those words. Last thing. There was a weight in his gaze, a sadness I could feel, but also something else. Hope, maybe? "Before she passed away," he continued, his voice trembling. "I couldn't bring myself to read it until now. I thought it would hurt too much." I could see the emotion in his eyes as he unfolded the letter. I wasn't sure what to do, what to say, but I found myself leaning in slightly, wanting to know what was in it. He began reading it silently, his lips barely moving, and I watched him. His face softened, and for a moment, I could see something like peace coming over him. His eyes welled with tears, but there was a tenderness in his expression that I wasn't expecting. It wasn't just sadness, it was relief. The letter, whatever it said, meant everything to him. I stood there in silence as he finished reading. He didn't speak for a long moment, just staring down at the letter as if it was the most precious thing in the world. Finally, he looked up at me, and there was a kind of quiet joy in his eyes. "You've brought me something I never thought I would have again," he said softly, his voice shaking. "This letter, it's the last part of her I have left, and I didn't even know it was still in the wallet. I thought I lost it." I could feel my throat tighten. I had never seen someone so vulnerable, so grateful, for something so small, something as simple as a letter, an old folded note that he had kept all this time. "I didn't even know. I never knew she had forgiven me for everything," he added, his voice thick with emotion. "I spent so many years thinking I'd failed her. I never told her the things I should have, but now I know she understood. I know she still loved me." I just nodded, and after a moment, I placed a hand gently on his arm. "I'm glad you found it," I said, and it was all I could think to say. I turned to leave, but before I stepped out the door, he called out to me. "Thank you for bringing this to me," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You don't know what this means. This letter, it's everything." I left the nursing home, the heavy weight of his words still hanging in the air. The rain had stopped, but the world felt different now, quieter somehow. The truth is, I never got to read the letter. I didn't need to. It wasn't my letter, and it wasn't my story. But seeing the effect it had on him, seeing that quiet joy, that peace, it made me realize something. In the end, it's not about fixing the past. It's about finding the peace you can right where you are. And sometimes, the smallest acts, like returning a wallet, can bring someone the biggest relief.